Comfort feels like refuge until it commands you. Hold this point steady as we begin. Events themselves do not disturb you. They have no voice, no intention, no power to command your state. What disturbs you is the judgment you place upon them. The mind reacts not to what happens, but to what it decides those events mean. This is the Stoic foundation. And without this distinction, every effort at discipline becomes unstable. Seeking comfort feels harmless. It appears gentle, reasonable, even necessary. Yet comfort is not neutral. When you make comfort the aim, you surrender authority. You teach the mind to avoid what is difficult, to delay what is necessary, to resist what demands effort. Over time, this creates a silent dependence. The moment discomfort appears, judgment shifts. This should not be here. From that single verdict, disturbance grows. You do not lose control all at once. You give it away in small moments of avoidance. When you choose ease over clarity, you trade direction for relief. The mind learns that discomfort is an enemy instead of a signal. Then every challenge feels like a threat rather than an opportunity to exercise choice. Stoic discipline does not oppose comfort. It simply refuses to serve it. Comfort is not evil, but it is unreliable. It cannot lead. It cannot decide. When it becomes the guide, you no longer act, you react. And reaction is never free. Responsibility cannot be outsourced to circumstances, moods, or preferences. The authority to judge remains with you at every moment. Nothing outside you can compel that judgment. When you remember this, you regain the only control that matters. Notice this carefully. Comfort confuses authority with relief. Everything that follows depends on one clear distinction. There is a boundary that determines whether discipline is possible at all. It is the boundary between what belongs to you and what does not. When this boundary is ignored, effort becomes exhausting and control becomes a fantasy. You may work harder, think more, plan endlessly, and still feel unstable. Not because you lack will, but because you are directing it toward the wrong domain. What belongs to you is limited, but it is absolute. Your judgments belong to you. Your intentions belong to you. Your choices, your refusals, your assent or non-assent, these are yours alone. No one can step inside this space unless you allow it. This is where authority resides. What does not belong to you is vast. Events, outcomes, the behavior of others, timing, recognition, comfort, inconvenience, even the body's sensations, these operate outside your command. You may influence some of them indirectly, but they are never owned. Treating them as possessions creates friction. Expecting them to obey creates resentment. The pursuit of comfort collapses this distinction. Comfort feels internal, so the mind treats it as something it can secure and preserve. But comfort depends almost entirely on externals: ease of circumstances, absence of resistance, predictable outcomes, favorable conditions. The moment you demand comfort, you extend your sense of authority into territory you cannot govern. This is where control begins to leak away. Consider a simple example. You plan your day with care. You expect it to proceed smoothly. When interruptions arise, irritation follows immediately. Why? Not because interruptions occurred, but because the mind judged that they should not. Comfort had been assumed as part of what was yours. When that assumption failed, frustration appeared. Or consider conversation. You speak calmly, expecting understanding. When the response is dismissive or unclear, tension rises. Again, not because of the response itself, but because you treated another person's behavior as something you were entitled to control. Comfort had quietly set the terms. In both cases, the same error appears: authority was misplaced. You attempted to command what cannot be commanded. The result is not just discomfort, but confusion. The mind becomes busy defending expectations instead of governing judgments. Stoic discipline begins with refusing this confusion. It does not promise ease. It restores accuracy. When you know precisely what is yours, effort becomes clean. You act where action is possible and release what was never under your command. This does not remove difficulty, but it removes unnecessary struggle. Seeking comfort reverses this clarity. It teaches the mind to scan the environment for guarantees. It waits for favorable conditions before acting. Over time, this creates dependency. Action feels risky. Discomfort feels like a violation. And judgment weakens because it is no longer practiced under resistance. Control is not lost through chaos. It is lost through misplaced ownership. Your authority is narrow, but it is sufficient. When you remain within it, nothing essential is threatened. When you abandon it in exchange for comfort, you trade sovereignty for relief. Relief passes quickly. Sovereignty does not. This boundary explains where effort is misplaced, but not yet how disturbance takes hold. Comfort enters at the moment of agreement. Now we look at what actually creates disturbance. Nothing begins with judgment. What arrives first is an impression. A sound, a delay, a look, a thought, a sensation in the body. These impressions are automatic. They do not ask permission. They appear the way weather appears. You are not responsible for their arrival. What follows, however, is decisive. Between the impression and your reaction, there is a moment, often brief, often unnoticed, where the mind either agrees or withholds agreement. This is assent. This is where freedom operates. Not in controlling impressions, but in deciding what they mean. Comfort interferes precisely here. An impression arises: pressure, inconvenience, boredom, resistance. Immediately, a familiar thought appears: this is unpleasant. That thought alone is still only an impression. Disturbance has not yet occurred. The disturbance begins when the mind adds something further: this should not be happening. That addition is assent. The mind has now agreed to a judgment. From that agreement, reaction follows automatically. This sequence is consistent. Impression, judgment, assent, disturbance. The impression is neutral. The judgment evaluates. Assent confirms. The reaction obeys. If you want control, this is the only point that matters. Seeking comfort trains the mind to assent quickly and carelessly. The moment discomfort appears, the judgment is already prepared. Avoid this. End this. Distract yourself. The mind does not pause to examine whether the discomfort is harmful, necessary, or irrelevant. It has already decided that comfort is the standard. Anything that violates it is treated as a problem. Consider criticism. Someone questions your decision. The impression is sound and meaning. The immediate sensation may be heat or tension. None of this is yet a problem. The problem begins when the mind assents to the judgment: this threatens me. From there, defensiveness or withdrawal follows without deliberation. Or consider delay. You are waiting. Time stretches. The impression is simply the absence of movement. But the mind assents to, this is wasting my time. Irritation follows. Not because time was lost, but because the mind agreed to a verdict about what should be happening instead. In both cases, comfort is the hidden reference point. The judgment assumes ease, efficiency, or affirmation as the baseline. When reality fails to match it, assent rushes in to correct the discomfort rather than examine the assumption. Stoic discipline does not aim to suppress impressions or eliminate feeling. It aims to protect the moment of assent. You are allowed to feel tension. You are allowed to notice resistance. What you are not required to do is agree that these sensations mean something is wrong. The pause before assent is small, but it is sufficient. One breath. One recognition: this is an impression. In that pause, judgment regains its role. The mind remembers that discomfort is not a command. It is information at best, noise at worst. Comfort undermines this pause by framing discomfort as urgent. It creates the illusion that something must be done immediately to restore ease. In truth, Nothing must be done except to withhold agreement. When assent is delayed, reaction loses its authority. This is why insight alone does not change behavior. You may understand the mechanism clearly and still fail to apply it under pressure. Without training, assent defaults to habit. And habit, when shaped by comfort, chooses relief over reason. Control does not disappear because impressions are strong. It disappears because assent is unguarded. Understanding this does not create discipline. It reveals where discipline must be practiced. Discipline is the training of attention, not force. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. Discipline is commonly imagined as pressure applied to the self. Endurance. Suppression. Forcing behavior into compliance through intensity. This misunderstanding is precisely why discipline collapses under discomfort. Force relies on conditions. Training prepares for them. Stoic discipline is not a reaction to difficulty. It is preparation for it. It does not demand that you overpower emotion. It requires that you educate attention. What you train is not the body or the mood, but the moment of judgment. Comfort-oriented thinking treats discipline as something you use when you feel motivated. Stoic discipline treats it as something you practice before motivation appears. The difference is decisive. When discipline depends on mood, it disappears under strain. When it depends on training, it remains available. Training is repetition under low stakes. You do not wait for crisis to practice judgment. You practice when the cost is small. Minor irritation, mild boredom, slight resistance. These are not obstacles. They are exercises. The purpose of training is not to eliminate feeling. Stoic discipline never promises that. The goal is to prevent feeling from dictating judgment. You may feel reluctance and still choose correctly. You may feel tension and still withhold assent. Emotion is not the enemy. Unexamined agreement is. Force tries to overpower discomfort. Training familiarizes the mind with it. Over time, discomfort loses its urgency. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer surprises. The mind has seen it before. It knows what to do. Consider how habits form. When you repeatedly respond to discomfort by escaping it, through distraction, delay, or rationalization, the mind learns a pattern. Discomfort equals retreat. This pattern becomes automatic. Later, when pressure increases, the response arrives before thought. Training reverses this process. You deliberately stay present with minor discomfort. You notice the impression. You name it. And you do nothing impulsive. This repetition builds capacity. Not strength, but clarity. Discipline is not a single decision. It is a practiced relationship with judgment. Each time you pause instead of reacting, that relationship strengthens. Each time you refuse to treat comfort as a command, authority returns inward. This is why discipline cannot be improvised. Under pressure, the mind defaults to what it knows. If it knows avoidance, it avoids. If it knows examination, it examines. Training decides this long before the moment arrives. Stoic discipline is quiet. It does not announce itself. It appears as restraint when reaction is easy. As patience when speed is tempting. As choice when habit would be simpler. There is no drama in it. Only consistency. Comfort promises relief now. Discipline promises reliability later. The first weakens judgment. The second refines it. The goal is not to become rigid or severe. It is to become dependable to yourself. When judgment is trained, you do not need force. You act because you recognize what is yours to command. Training remains abstract unless it appears in daily life. Ordinary moments are where discipline is proven. This practice is proven in ordinary moments. Discipline does not appear when conditions are dramatic. It appears when nothing seems important enough to matter. This is where comfort usually takes control, because the stakes feel low, the mind relaxes its guard. Yet this is precisely where training either continues or quietly erodes. Stoic practice is not performed in isolation from daily life. It is woven into it. The day itself becomes the field of training, not through intensity, but through consistency. The first practice is anticipation, without anxiety. Each day will present inconvenience, delay, interruption, misunderstanding. This is not pessimism. It is accuracy. When you expect smoothness, disruption feels like injustice. When you expect friction, it feels ordinary. The mind remains balanced because it was not promised ease. Anticipation here is not rehearsal of failure. It is a reminder of reality. You tell yourself, calmly, that impressions will arise. You do not imagine them in detail. You do not brace emotionally. You simply remove surprise. Surprise is what gives discomfort its force. The second practice is the pause before assent. This is the center of Stoic discipline. When an impression appears, an urge to escape, a flash of irritation, a pull toward distraction, you pause. One breath is enough. In that breath, you do not argue with the impression. You identify it. This is an impression. That is all. Most reactions feel necessary only because assent is immediate. The pause interrupts this momentum. It restores choice. You may still decide to act, but the action is no longer compelled. It is chosen. This pause is not dramatic. No one sees it. That is why it works. Discipline performed for display collapses. Discipline practiced quietly accumulates strength. The third practice is evening review, without guilt or praise. At the end of the day, you examine where assent was given too quickly and where it was withheld. You do not condemn yourself. You do not congratulate yourself. Both reactions distort judgment. Guilt is not responsibility. It is another unexamined judgment. It adds a second disturbance on top of the first. Praise is equally dangerous. It tempts the mind to relax vigilance. The review is factual. Where did comfort guide judgment? Where did clarity remain intact? This review trains memory. The mind begins to recognize patterns. Certain impressions repeat. Certain judgments weaken discipline. Awareness grows not through criticism, but through observation. These practices are small by design. They do not demand heroism. They demand attention. Comfort resists this because attention is effort. It prefers automatic relief. But automatic relief always comes at the cost of authority. Over time, something subtle changes. Discomfort still appears, but it no longer dominates. The mind becomes familiar with it. The pause becomes natural. Judgment becomes steadier. This is not a transformation. It is an alignment. The day stops being something to endure or escape. It becomes material. Each moment offers the same question: will judgment be exercised, or outsourced to comfort? Consistency matters more than intensity here. Missing a practice is not failure. Failing to return to it is. Discipline is maintained, not achieved. Each return strengthens it. When this practice becomes stable, a different kind of freedom appears. Comfort promises ease while freedom requires command. Freedom is often misunderstood. It is commonly imagined as the absence of pressure, space to relax, the ability to do as you please without resistance. By this definition, freedom depends entirely on conditions. When life cooperates, you feel free. When it does not, freedom disappears. This is not freedom. It is comfort with favorable timing. Stoic freedom is different. It does not require life to soften. It requires judgment to remain sovereign. When comfort becomes the measure, freedom becomes fragile. The moment discomfort appears, authority shifts outward. Mood decides. Circumstances decide. The body decides. You wait to feel ready. You wait to feel better. Control quietly leaves your hands. Inner freedom begins where this waiting ends. Stoicism does not claim that life becomes easier. Difficulty remains. Loss remains. Fatigue remains. What changes is not the terrain, but who commands your response to it. Authority returns inward, where it has always belonged. Freedom, in this sense, is the capacity to choose without needing relief first. You act because reason directs you, not because conditions are pleasant. You refrain because judgment advises restraint, not because resistance has vanished. This is not indifference. It is independence. Comfort competes with this freedom because it offers a shortcut. It says, feel better first, then decide. Stoic discipline reverses the order. Decide first. Feelings will follow or they will not. Either way, judgment remains intact. This is why comfort cannot be trusted as a guide. It seeks stability through avoidance. Freedom maintains stability through command. One depends on externals behaving well. The other depends only on your use of judgment. Nothing outside you must change for this to begin. The moment you stop asking discomfort for permission, freedom is already present. Not complete, not perfected, but available. This freedom is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It appears as quiet reliability. You do what must be done even when ease is absent. You refrain from what weakens judgment even when it promises relief. Over time, this consistency creates steadiness. Authority does not mean control over life. It means control over assent. This is enough. No event can take this from you. No mood can revoke it. Only neglect can weaken it. Comfort weakens freedom by asking you to escape. Discipline strengthens freedom by asking you to stay present. Not rigidly. Not harshly. Precisely. Freedom is not something you reach. It is something you maintain. Each time you withhold assent from the demand for comfort, you preserve it. Each time you return authority to judgment, you reinforce it. This brings us to the final responsibility. Responsibility ends where excuses begin. Nothing here requires escalation. The principle is simple and it does not soften with repetition. You are responsible for your judgments. That responsibility cannot be delegated to comfort, circumstance, or mood. When control is lost, it is not taken. It is released. Seeking comfort is not a moral failure. It is a misunderstanding of authority. Comfort promises relief from effort, but it cannot preserve direction. The moment you require ease in order to act, judgment has already stepped aside. You wait. You negotiate. You postpone. And in doing so, you abandon what was always yours to command. Stoic discipline makes no such negotiation. It does not ask how you feel before deciding how to respond. It does not wait for clarity to appear. It produces clarity through use. Judgment strengthens only when exercised under resistance. This does not mean perfection is expected. You will assent too quickly. You will react when you meant to pause. These moments do not disqualify you. They reveal the work. Responsibility includes returning without explanation or self-justification. Inner freedom is maintained, not achieved. Each moment presents the same choice: will judgment lead, or will comfort decide? No outcome can make this choice for you. No difficulty removes it. Only neglect allows it to weaken. The work is quiet. It happens in small refusals and small returns. You refuse to treat discomfort as a command. You return authority to judgment. Again and again. Over time, this becomes your default posture. Nothing more needs to be added. Return to what is yours.